Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has forced the Chancellor, well, now he's the former Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, to resign. This is the first Black man to be Chancellor of the United Kingdom. I think this is rather unfair, not because he's the first Black Chancellor, and I happen to be Black. You know, I don't go on like that. I don't care about things like that. But the fact of the matter is the reason why he is now being forced to resign is because he implemented economic policies in a mini budget, which Liz Truss told him to implement. And the markets obviously didn't like them. And the pound dropped in the currency markets. It dropped in value in the currency markets because the economic advisors didn't like the fact that Liz Truss told her chancellor to lower taxes and not have a way to make up the money for that lost revenue. So that's pretty much Trussonomics. That's what the media is calling it. I'm sorry, this lighting is really terrible. I can't wait to get back to my old studio to make these videos. But let's just do the best we can. I mean, even now it's making me look like I've got some kind of, this is even, okay, maybe we can just work with this here for a minute. But Truss she's replaced Boris Johnson as the leader of the Conservative Party and now as the Prime Minister. And she wanted lower taxes to boost investment in the UK and growth in the British economy. And she didn't want to cut spending. So in order to pay for all the things that the people want, health, education, all these sort of things, infrastructure, and also to pay for, I'm sure, giving billions of dollars to Ukraine unnecessarily, in my opinion, because Ukraine has nothing to do with Britain or any of us in the West. And furthermore, I think Russia has a point. They don't want to be encircled by NATO, but all that money would be given by borrowing from the Bank of England, putting Britain in more debt. And the bond markets didn't like that, and the currency markets didn't like that, and everybody was worried about the state of the economy. And I mean, I think maybe the news was a little bit exaggerated. You know, it was probably a little exaggerated. Nevertheless, there was a lot of instability. And now Liz Truss is doing some flip-flopping or U-turns. She's backing off on those tax cuts on some of them. And she's now put the chancellor under the bus. These are her decisions. These are things she wanted to do, and now he's gone, which is unfair. But whatever. That's how parliamentary democracy works. You know, my analysis is that Liz Truss, first of all, when Boris Johnson rightfully resigned, he should never be forgiven for locking down the economy and then and to make matters worse, not even following his own guidelines. I will never forget. I don't care who he is. I don't care who or what he has done. That is unforgivable. That part is unforgivable. I don't care. You know, I'm a pretty forgiving person. You know, this if you speed and but for a politician to do something as evil, I think that's the greatest evil of our time, locking down the economy and these coronavirus mandates. The stupidest, most subhuman, mongrel, inferior thing that anyone could have done to our world. And then to make matters worse, he didn't even follow his own guidelines. So he was right to be thrown out. I don't care what anybody says. Throw his ass out. But I when they were looking to replace him, I didn't particularly like any of the choices in the conservative leadership, but I would have chosen Rishi over Liz Truss if that was the only two. It came down to those two. Rishi was a lot more realistic, and Rishi also he was a little bit more lockdown skeptic than Truss was, even though they all supported the lockdowns at one point or another. They all supported the mandates, but she supported the Plan B. She never rebelled. She never spoke up. He didn't support the Plan B. He did speak up eventually against the mandates, and he supported Brexit. And Liz Truss didn't support Brexit. Liz Truss used to be a liberal Democrat, Lib Dem. So to be honest with you, I, I, I think that if you had to put a gun to my head and force me to choose between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, I would have chosen Rishi Sunak, and I would have. I think Liz Truss is a bit too much of a. Let's put it this way. I think Liz Truss is, I mean, they're all globalists, so, calling her a globalist is probably, but I think she still has that liberal instinct. That when I say liberal, she's very neoliberal, and I'm not all that neoliberal. I'm actually very happy. One of the greatest things that's ever happened to conservatives, not just in Britain, but all over the West. And I'm an independent, but I usually lean conservative. But one of the greatest things that has happened to the conservatives is that they've sort of shifted away from that neoliberal mindset, that neoliberal, which is slightly globalistic, free trade and, low taxes for people at the top, which I don't mind low taxes. I think income tax is theft, but I don't know if you're following what I'm trying to say. This economic neoliberal globalist neocon in the United States type of thing. They've shifted, and Liz Truss is trying to go back to that. And I never really trust her. And also, she's all in on Ukraine. She supports giving billions of British tax dollars to Ukraine and all this stuff. I mean, all of them pretty much do. Liz Truss would have made her policies would have been good in a recession, but not in an inflation. I mean, I agree with her about growth. I agree. Growth is good, but let's talk about the here and now. Right now, there's a global inflation, which is caused by mandates, as I've said. This doesn't have to happen. This is mandates, not Putin or anything like that. She'll blame Putin. All of them blame Putin. Putin, is responsible for everything under the sun now. It's not Putin. It's them. It's the mandates, coronavirus lockdowns that did this. Lockdowns caused the inflation, and growth is really not something you want to be talking too much about in the middle of inflation. Inflation means that the economy is overinflated. It's overheating. Now, it's possible there could be a stagflation, and that could happen, where the economy is stagnant but prices are still high. That could be for a number of different reasons. It could be a number of different reasons where businesses are forced to have price control, something like price controls under the market price and all sorts of different things like that. But inflation needs to be taken care of. And for you to be having all these tax cuts for these big banksters and these big, rich, fat cats and these speculators in the city of London, the financial district, is really going to make inflation worse. So, I mean, don't think of me as somebody who supports tax rises. I don't. I think that income tax is theft. I think the only type of taxation we should have is sales taxes, maybe excess taxes, and tariffs for products that come into a country when the country can make those products itself. And the only way you'd have income taxes or any other corporate taxes or anything like that is if business leaders, political leaders do things that are against the interests of the people, and they would have to pay the consequences for that in taxes. But for you to be so focused on growing the economy, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You shouldn't shrink, but for you to be that's almost like that's almost, as a conservative, conservatives are supposed to be good at this. When Obama says that, when Obama said back in 2008 that he was going to raise taxes on people making more than, I can't remember how much it was. And McCain would say, well, this is a global recession. Nobody should have their taxes raised, which it is correct. It's correct. It's a recession. You want to grow the economy. Recession means that there is not enough money in the economy, but there's so many goods out there for people to buy, but not enough money. So you want to grow the money, grow the economy. Inflation means that there's too much money in the economy, and as a result, there's not enough goods to spend that money on. Because all these business owners, they have to keep up with all this money being spent. They have to build the stuff. They have to build. And as a result, they have to raise their prices so they can keep up with the building of the products. So there's too much money. So you have to get rid of some of that money. You have to shrink the economy. You have to deflate. You have to cool down the economy. That's how you get inflation under control. And it's almost like Liz Truss has her priorities backwards. Now, growth in the long run is a good thing. It is. But in the short term, we have to be talking about this global inflation, which you caused. And Boris Johnson caused, and all these Western leaders, pretty much all the leaders of the world caused with the lockdowns. We have to figure out how we can deal with the inflation. So growth is something that should right now not be abandoned, but should not be the top focus right now. It should not be the top focus right now. The top focus right now is to cool down the economy with inflation. And you talking about growth, which in the long term is a good thing, and is always a good thing to grow the economy. And we also have to make sure that while cooling down the economy, we don't go into stagflation or a deep recession. But you have to understand that in a global inflation, we need to focus on cooling down the economy. So Liz Truss would have probably done well in a recession as prime minister. Hell, she'd have probably been the greatest during a recession. But during an inflation, it's almost like she's making matters worse. So we'll see what happens. I personally don't think the Conservatives in Britain are going to win the next election, whenever that could be. I know it's years from now, 2025, and a lot could happen. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just don't know. I think the damage might have been done. I certainly, I mean, I'm not British or anything, but I have a very good relationship with a lot of British listeners, and a lot of British people listen to me, and I'm not dictating or anything. They like to take my advice. I personally would not endorse the Conservatives with Liz Truss as the leader. She didn't support Brexit, and she supported the Plan B coronavirus lockdown measures. I don't think she's ever said anything about how bad the lockdowns and the mandates were. So as a result, I would not support Liz Truss, Liz Truss's Conservative Party. I would endorse Reform UK. So we'll see what happens. I think it was unfair what she did to Kwasi Kwarteng. He was just following orders. Now look at that. 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 Anyway, that's what I've got to say on this. This is